everybody, it's Jedimanda here, and I'm finally completing some videos that I've promised a lot of you guys. I'm finally going to start posting complete videos about how I made my costumes from start to finish. They're not necessarily going to be a tutorial video, it's more or less going to be like an overview, or as Alex calls it, Cosplay Breakdown. Breakdown. Many of you have asked how I've made my outfits over the years, and I try to do as many tutorials as I can, but recording a 9-month build, it's a lot of video footage. It's so much. I think all of the video footage that I have for my Anastasia is like 4 gigs, and that maybe is being light on that. But I'm finally going to start making videos to show you guys how I made my more famous outfits and also some ones you might have not known I've had. Complete with patterns, breakdown, wigs, materials, and fabrics. So, my first one is going to be about Doctor Strange. As you can see on this wonderful 6-foot mannequin, that's clearly not my height. She's a little large, but that's okay. So, I'm going to break it down. It's probably going to be a little bit of a longer video. Apologies ahead of time, but just go ahead and grab some popcorn, have a seat. We're going to talk about my Doctor Strange cosplay. So the first thing I'm going to want to talk about is my cloak. This lovely carpet that I wear. Everybody loves this cloak, and I love it so, so much too. And so let's start talking about it first. So the first thing I want to tell you all is that I did drape this myself. So I didn't use a pattern for my cloak. However, the McCall's 7676 pattern does have a Cloak of Levitation pattern if you would like to use it. I just prefer to do it on my own, and I wanted to drape it on my own body to see how it would go. And I will talk about this pattern more when we get to the tunic and the overshirt thing. So for now, there's that. I took really heavy fabric from Joann's that I special ordered from them, and I'll have links below in the description as much as I can with what and where I got these fabrics and notions and everything. I'll do my hardest to remember where I got them, because I don't remember where I got them. But I know this one came from Joann's, specifically the upholstery section. And I wanted something super textured, and I ended up purchasing about 4 yards of this, I believe. And it's this fabric right here we're talking about. And I ended up pleating and draping it on a dress form. If you would like to see some more in-depth photos on how I did that, over on my Facebook page, I have hundreds of photos of behind the scenes of what I did. I just don't have any video. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So once I draped the cloak, I had to gather all of the notions and trim. And I'm using Premier Velvet from Joann's also for the red trim, and on this piece right here I have a lot of just random red trims that I found at Joann's. Pretty much with this outfit, it's a lot of texture, it's a lot of what you can find and just make it work and what you can make on your own. This is not exactly screen accurate. I went with basically my interpretation of everything, but I tried to get it as screen accurate as I possibly could. I just don't have a lot of people to reach out to get fabrics from Japan, because I live in Kentucky and that's not how this goes. So I'm using Joann's for everything pretty much. This trim is also from Joann's. This is a Joann's trim. This is upholstery fringe trim that I trimmed down. How many times can I say trim? Trim, 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 more trim. So much trim. For the outer panel border, or whatever this is called. And also some trims here on the shoulder. And then this shoulder piece, I used velvet for that. And I'll explain how I got the checkerboard fabric. The checkerboard pattern on the velvet here in a bit. Another thing that I want to point out that I did do by hand that is very easy to do, it just takes a long time, is the couching on the very back of the collar and the back neck of the cloak. It is done with hemp cording that I couched, which is an embroidery term. That means you lay down trim or some kind of ribbon or cording on top of fabric, and then you hand stitch little stitches over top of it to kind of bring it down like this on top of the fabric. It's called couching. This is the weirdest motion, couching. And it's really squiggly, and it only took me about 2 evenings to hand sew all of this. You can do it with a free motion cording foot on a sewing machine if you don't want to hand sew, but the problem with that is that you can't get really tight turns, and everything doesn't necessarily look as neat as it does when you hand sew it. So with that, I used the just a basic red linen on top of a foam interfacing that I'll explain in a bit, and then I couched the cording on top of that, so it's easier to see in the video of me pointing to it besides me just talking like this. But that was a piece that I did, and also within the collar is wiring on the edges here because the cloak does have a little animation to him. He does move around, and I just used a regular gardening wire for that I hand sewed in. But within the collar is a foam called superstructure foam. And what this is a interfacing, which is a fusible fabric or a fusible stabilizer that you can iron onto fabric to give it structure. And this is actually foam. It's not craft foam, it's open cell foam that you can iron on to fabric, and that gives it structure. That is how my collar is standing. There is wire all along the top and down the sides, but inside is the structure foam sandwiched in between my outside upholstery fabric layer. Okay, let's talk about the checkerboard pattern that I did on the velvet. Now, I actually figured this out by mistake. I was going to use some embossing techniques with the velvet, some burnout techniques that I wanted to do, but I use wax-based chalk in a lot of my notions, and when you draw on certain fabrics with this chalk, it will leave a residue when the iron hits it or when you apply heat. Most of the time it will vanish, and that's the benefit of this chalk, but on certain fabrics it stays. And I happened to mark some lines on this velvet, and I hit it with my iron just to see what it looked like, or to remove the marks, to try something else, and they actually stayed, and they gave a bit of a dimension to it, and I knew if I continued to use this technique for the velvet, that I would get a design. And so I burnt through like 2 or 3 chalks to be able to get this really cool design on top of the velvet without a lot of experimentation. It is kind of organic, I guess I would put the term for that. Not all the lines are straight. Some of the boxes are filled in that I didn't mean to fill in, but all in all, it actually worked. And when you look at it, it's subtle enough to where it gives that dimension that the actual fabric has, which I believe they used a burnout technique for the velvet. I don't really know. I couldn't find a lot of information on behind the scenes. I found out where they got the fabrics, which is like China and Japan, not here. So I had to make up a lot. Also, with the shoulder piece here and down the front, I did create a custom embroidery file for this. I ended up finding an image of this design on his cloak, and I threw it into Adobe Illustrator, and I basically redrew it. And I have the capability and the software to be able to draw something, make a JPEG out of it, slam it to some embroidery software, convert that to an embroidery file, and then send that to my embroidery machine for the machine to create it. It's a lot of steps, but that's how people do custom embroidery. I did that for my Queen of Amidala's, I did that for Mary Poppins, and I did it for Doctor Strange. I don't really know if this is floating around out there on Etsy. If you are interested in finding the embroidery file yourself, I can definitely link the JPEG if I can find it. I might not have that anymore. Well, sorry. But I've also seen a lot of people bead this, which looks really super cool. Just takes a lot of time. However you want to do, but it is a certain design that is within the cloak that you might want to look into if you're looking for screen accuracy. I applied trims, like I said here, and then all throughout here is just different super cool quilting stitches on my Bernina that I was like, well, I never use this stitch. Why not try it for some detailing? And it actually turned out super cool. So I picked like 5 random quilting stitches on my machine and I just added a lot more detail to the shoulder. I love this spot. It just looks really good. On the back of the cloak, there is I would say it's kind of a sundial-esque design that I used the trim to kind of mark out the spots where I would put the velvet. If you're interested in seeing how I laid it out, there is images in my Facebook album of my Doctor Strange on my page if you'd like to look at that more. Okay, the second to last thing I want to talk about is the lining. The really cool screen accurate lining. I did not design this. I purchased it off of spoonflower.com, and if you are interested in getting this exact lining, it is a polyester fabric that I printed it on, or that I ordered it to be printed on, and it was designed by a lady whose name is slipping me right now. I will have this exact link below in the description if you are interested in finding this exact fabric. It is pricey, but hey, it's the exact design that is from the movie. So trying to find a source that is very similar to this is kind of tough. So sometimes the money is worth it, definitely for the lining. I draped the lining, just very similar how I draped the cloak, and then I hand sewed it in. These little accoutrements here were graciously donated to me by Jedi Jeremy on Twitter. Hey dude, how's it going? He was very kind enough to 3D print my time stone, these little bits for the cloak, and also my sling ring, and I ended up painting it. So these are 3D printed pieces. If you're interested in finding something like this, there's tons of links on Etsy. I suggest you go find a 3D printer and they'll print them yourself and then you paint them. Or you can print them yourself, whichever you like. But these are 3D printed plastic pieces that are just super glued on with a lot of super glue. The last thing I want to talk about the cloak is how I'm actually wearing it. I have a lot of questions of people asking, how is this staying on you? Because this is extremely heavy, and what most people don't know is that I actually have a shoulder harness on me at all times that you can't really see. You can kind of see on the mannequin right here just because the way she's standing, but you can't really see it when I wear it. This shoulder harness has magnets on it that is basically holding the cloak onto me, and so it's not pulling on my outfit, it's not pulling on me, it's not making me fall backwards. Let me go ahead and take this off and you can see what it looks like. I am using rare earth magnets, these little guys. I think they're an inch and a half, I'm not sure, but these are strong magnets, and that is what is holding this front piece in right here. I have magnets here, I have a magnet right here, and then I have magnets on the straps themselves, so I have a lot of magnets everywhere. But these help keep it on, so I highly recommend. So, let's go ahead and take this off. Off goes the baby. So right here is the shoulder straps that I do have on. This was a very easy to find product off of Amazon. I think it was $9. It's just a shoulder harness that I sewed little pockets of magnets onto right here. I do suggest, I actually might end up doing this to like upkeep my Doctor Strange outfit, putting more on the back just to help the weight distribute a little bit better, because sometimes it does pull it backwards even though it's securely on, it's not coming off, but these do really help. So I highly suggest, no matter the weight of your cloak, you do something similar to this, because when you're wearing it around at a convention floor, it's going to be pulling your outfit backwards, and it's also going to give you a lot of back strain, and you do not want that. But it goes on like this. Woo. Anyways, a super simple Selvage, I think is the brand of the one I got, but there's several different types on Amazon you can get. Just search for shoulder harness. Easy, no need to make, just buy it online, add your magnets, call it a day. Okay, next let's talk about the tunic and the, I don't don't know what to call this. Overlay. What did they call it in McCall's thing?
A tunic?
Vest.
Oh.
It's a vest.
That's a tunic.
Vest. Well, underneath is a tunic. This is tunic. This is a vest. So after the cloak, I made the tunic and the vest, and I did use this pattern. It is a specifically men's pattern, so it's very boxy, but it's also very easily altered. When I say easily, it's kind of more or less kind of taking in the sides and taking up the waist for it to fit a lady figure much better than it does a men's, because the actual pattern, the waist is really low. And so that was one of the main alterations I did, but all in all, I pretty much stuck to this pattern. All of the detailing, the pleating right here is from this pattern. It was a bit difficult, I'm not gonna lie. Take your time, do a muslin mock-up first so you understand the folds and where things go before actually going into your actual fabric. The fabric that I used for the vest and tunic is a extremely lightweight, I don't want to say duck canvas, twill. I would say twill canvas mix. It's very strange. I actually had two good friends of mine find this, or did you find it?
Yeah.
I thought, this was you, Sarah, and Casey. You, Sarah and Casey?
No, just me and Casey.
Yeah, they found my Anastasia fabric.
Yeah.
Okay. Alex and Casey Renee, shout out to y'all. You all found my fabric. They found it was Georgia, what? Atlanta Fabric Warehouse?
Yes.
Yes.
Fabric District.
Fabric District in Atlanta.
There's a lot of fabrics.
Right. Joann's didn't really have the colors that I wanted, nor the fabric types for the tunic and the vest, and so I sent my fabric buyers down to Atlanta to find it. And they did. They found a very nice linen for the vest and a duck canvas like twill fabric for the tunic that I ended up fabric softening to get it to soften down. But they were totally different enough to where I wanted to use both the blues, and it was the closest I could find to screen accurate movie were these two. So thank you guys, appreciate it. So now let's talk about the tunic itself underneath the vest. There's not much to talk about for that. It's pretty much this. I followed the pattern, and I did drop the center front down much lower because I wanted it to have more of a feminine neckline than the guys, and I took it in a little more within the center front. But to get these details, these are just stacked ribbon and stitching with different color thread. I used that method so much for the vest and tunic for this outfit. It's pretty much really all, like I said before, what you have laying around in the tones and the hues that you want, and then just playing with stitches and fabric manipulation. That's why I love this outfit. Oh, it's so much experimenting. So this is just top stitched on directly to the tunic. Nothing fancy about that. Regular collar, and I did drop the center front down to really low. It doesn't show a lot of my chest, but it shows enough to where it gives a feminine line more than a masculine neckline. So that's the tunic, and it is long sleeved, but I ended up cuffing this actually to where it bunches up a lot right here on me underneath the cuffs, so don't necessarily need a sleeve hem for that. And it does go past my hips. This mannequin is a little smaller than me, but it hits me kind of right here. And I am just wearing regular navy leggings. I didn't make the leggings for this. That's pretty much it for the tunic. Let's move on to the vest. The vest has a lot going on. It is altered heavily to my body style and type than the pattern. That's all up to you and what you want with whatever and how you make your Doctor Strange. I followed the directions for the pleating for this. I did do a lot of airbrushing to some of the details underneath the pleats, but I think over time, me wearing it a lot has kind of made it come off. But you can see down here, it's a little darker than on top. I just wanted some more dimension, so doing a little airbrush detailing was just my choice on that one. So let's talk about this. So the pattern pretty much gets you to the point of the pleats and finishing it. It doesn't tell you to do all of this. This detailing is pretty close to the movie, but not exactly. These are just little X's that my sewing machine had a preset stitch for that I just used over and over. And I just changed thread colors. This took a long time. I mean, it's pretty simple. Once you have the border neckline into here, I do have it interfaced pretty heavily. I just stitched over top of it so much, and I just traded the colors to get the different hues that I want. I did the same thing right here over near over the breasts, and varying my stitch width, varying my stitch rows as I'm going further back into the pleats. I ended up having to remove a lot of this because actually this spot was like here and this was like here, and it didn't look good, so I had to remove a lot of this and redo it. It was a pain because each one of these, oh, there's like a rip, oh damn. Each one of these pleats is separate. It's pleated within the fabric, but it's not an over top stitch because I still wanted that dimension there. So I had to pleat each one of these, stitch them like this under the sewing machine. And after a while, it begins to kind of mess with your head a little bit. But it looks so nice, and that's what matters. After I completed that, I moved on to the shoulders. And I am using some of the superstructure foam here in the shoulders. There is no wiring, that's just the foam itself staying up. And I will say this stuff is so awesome. If you don't have access to purchasing it from So Much Cosplay, which is my preferred seller for this, there is a Pellon, which is the interfacing brand that you can find at Joann's. There is a Pellon similar interfacing that you can get, but I just don't think the fusible web is that good. And also it's white versus the So Much Cosplay foam is black, and so that works with this. I adhered it to the shoulder, and then I just drew a bunch of, or I stitched a bunch of lines, a la quilting lines, to give it dimension and also to get it to stick up. So that's why the shoulders look a little more quilted, I would say. And then for the edges, I just took some more ribbon that I had, and this is actually the Selvage Edge of this fabric. So for those of you who are not familiar with a lot of fabric terms, the Selvage Edge is the edge of the fabric that's got all the little fray bits, and that also helps you determine where your grain of your fabric is. But I had a lot of this left over, and this stuff doesn't necessarily fray, it just kind of stays where it is. So I ended up just tacking it on to the armhole. And it gives also a really cool textured look, which is what this is all about. Texture! The last thing I want to talk about with the vest is the closure. And it's pretty simple. It's hard to tell because it's underneath the corset. I have a snap and a hook and bar, pretty much right in the middle, and that's all that's holding this on. It fits me like a glove, and I love it so much. I really love the tunic and the vest, if you can't tell. Okay, let's move forward. Let's go to the corset. The corset, I believe, is the Yaya Han cosplay corset pattern from McCall's. Super simple. Follow the directions. It's an underbust corset. The only thing different that I did was I added stitching over here, just some detail stitching that is on his little cincher. His, I think, is actually made out of leather. I didn't really have that as an option at the moment, so it's just made out of black cotton. Super simple. And there's also Avengers lining. You can't really tell, but it's in there. It's in there. And I'm also using steel boning, and it's got a corset closure in the back, so it laces up the back. Pretty simple, nothing much about an underbust corset. It's just this. We are rounding home, I promise. So let's talk about the belts. The belts were basically items that I found in the sewing trims aisle. I didn't really do anything super fancy with them as far as fabric manipulation or anything. This is an already pre-made belt trim that you can buy. This is too, however, the brown faux leather is bias tape stitched. Man, my terminology today is just like not there. Over top this black pre-made belt notion that I found also. Joann's! There are two belts. One is loosely wrapped around me and held together with a snap. The other one is tied. That's a thing. The over top belt is a layered belt looking thing. That looks like this. That I basically just draped on my mannequin and cut and stitched where it needed to be. However, this little circular piece here is EVA foam. It is EVA foam covered with a whole bunch of Mod Podge and then painted with acrylic and then covered again. However, my paint is starting to peel off now, so I gotta kind of rethink how I'm gonna go forward with this piece. The belt was stitched on. These are suede leather strips that I buy in bulk that I just have, that I basically just, with a knitting needle, which is basically a big plastic needle with a large eye, kind of just hand sewed stitched these over top of the foam circle here. It's so hard to explain, but that's what it looks like. And then I just took it apart to get it to fray down here. What?
That's what I do to be like, then this is what it looks like. Just make up YouTuber it.
Oh
Just,
God.
This is the color.
This is color, it's black! A lot more detailing was done with the leather suede trim that I had down here too, with the knitting needle. If you want some more up close pictures, like I said, they are in my Facebook album. The next thing I want to talk about on this belt are these little bits here. These are leather strips that I just glued down and weathered with acrylic paint. This is my 3D printed sling ring that I did paint, and it's just held down by an elastic piece. So if I want to take it off, I can, but I usually really don't. Keep it on there. These silver pieces are aluminum engraving jewelry material that I just found at Joann's, like another thing that I found. And on it is actually the engraved initials of all of my Ko-fi donators that sponsored this outfit. They helped me with fabric costs and all kinds of stuff. So if you are interested in donating to my outfits, shameless plug, you can get on my actual cosplay outfit. So the more I do these videos, the more you can see where I place the names of all my donators into my outfits. They're creatively done, I will say. But anyways, all of their initials are on my belt, engraved by moi. Rounded home. These are the last things I want to talk about, and the shoes, we'll get to that, are the cuffs. The cuffs were pretty simple. They are zipped on. Little trapezoids, is that what that shape is? I don't know.
Like dot.
To get this pattern, I saran wrapped my arm, and then I duct taped my arm and I cut off that pattern, and I had the exact same, I had a clone of my arm basically to form the pattern of this. And once I had that figured out, I added a separating zipper on both sides. And once again, Joann's comes in play here because all of these are just trims. Trims that I found in the Joann's aisle that I thought texturally worked, tonally worked. And then once I stitched them down very haphazard, I took an airbrush and I just went over with black and gave it a lot more weathered look to get the cuffs. And then they just zip on like meow. Like meow. Meow. I'm running out of words to say. And they slide on like that. The last thing are the shoes. I know Betty Sue here is only wearing one shoe because I couldn't get it on her other foot. But the shoes were purchased Amazon heels that lace up And I took some frayed fabric of I think this is a mixture of both the linen and the duck canvas, and stitched it on certain spots within the boot. And then I just basically wrapped it around my leg like a leg wrap. I wanted the fray look. In the movie, he has a lot of just straps around weird boots that he wears that are like tennis shoes, and I don't know, they look really weird. But this is what I came up with. Over time, I will say I will have to remove these and put new pieces on because they get frayed and then they lose their grip and then they break. I did take some silver rub and buff to give it some weathered looks down on the toe. Not a whole lot, but that's pretty much the boots. Timestone. That's it. So the second in the wig. Second to the last thing I want to talk about is the timestone. Like I said before, this is a completely 3D printed piece that does work. Gently. That does work, that I did get from my friend Jedi Jeremy on Twitter. If you're interested in getting one from him specifically, I will put his link below and you can just shoot him a direct message. I'm sure he'll do it again for a price. I did paint the entire timestone Eye of Agamotto with gold rub and buff, which is a wax-based paint that dries real fast and is super awesome, and you apply it with a rag and it gives it a super antique look. A little bit goes a long way. It's an awesome product to use for a lot of cosplay painting. And then I took some black acrylic into all of the grooves and made it super, super weathered. The last thing I did was the cord. I ended up actually finding the black cord at Joann's once again. Joann's coming through in the jewelry aisle, like a clearance thing. And it is trimmed to make it hang a little lower. And then I took the same hemp cording that I used on the Cloak of Levitation and just wrapped it around, glued it, made some different detailing choices. Because within the movie, the cord itself is heavily detailed. I just did what I thought would be the best option. So on this side is the red hemp cording. On this side is actually copper wiring that I had in my jewelry box that I just wrapped around it and glued it to give it some more depth and dimension. Okay guys, we're wrapping it up here. The last thing I want to talk about is the wig. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I actually do have a tutorial on how I made this wig exactly on my channel. It's under Dr. Strange Cosplay Wig Tutorial. I'll put a link in the video somewhere or a card to where you can go find it. If you can't find it then, it is in the description below. But to sum it up, this is an Arta wig. It is the Virginia Lace Front Classic in dark brown. And I did, as the video will show you, I did all the styling to it. It did not come like this. I hand tied in the hair, and the hair is the short weft in silver, I think is the actual color. And for this style, I have it just braided back and pinned in the back. I wanted a very simple style because the whole outfit has got a lot going on, and I wanted something that will pull my hair back so where I can see the sideburns and you get that Doctor Strange white hair look, and also some bangs. Okay, that is my entire cosplay overview or breakdown. Breakdown! I'm not gonna get through any of this stuff, Anna. On Doctor Strange. If you have any questions further from what I explained, I'm not sure what else I can talk about because I pretty much covered everything. Please feel free to message me on Instagram or Facebook. I'll gladly help with any questions you specifically have. If you would like to see more videos about my cosplay breakdowns, please stay tuned. I plan to do a whole lot more of my outfits to show you guys really how I made these from start to finish. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more cosplay videos, vlogs, and tutorials. If you would like some further information on how I made my Doctor Strange, please check out my website at jedimanda.com. I have a full blog post on how I made it there too. And the cloak is falling off, which means it's done, which means I'm done. I will see you all later. Adios!